In a world where legends rise and fall with every punch, where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in snowy Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching and whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just go to Amazon.com. Or you could check out our website, BillyCBoxing.com. I meant to check to see if that there's a sale directly from the publisher. And I think it's going on through the end of this month. So check that out. We had a little technical difficulties starting off the show. So I don't know if all of our platforms are getting the show live, but hey, if you're not, you know where to find us live or podcast or replay or on demand or YouTube, all those places. If you want to get a list of where you can subscribe, where you can follow, where you can friend us, just visit BillyCBoxing.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Classic Boats Incorporated. Check it out, classicboats.co. for all the info on that. All right, we got a busy show scheduled for you today, as usual. I'm going to pretty much spend the show today getting you caught up on some news and, of course, my opinions. But one of the biggest topics today is, we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, and I've been saying Dana White and Zuffa Boxing, and there's been some back and forth conversations with several people. I mean, the most recent one was my man Carl King and I last week talking about the pros and cons of it. He kind of was taking the side of the sanctioning bodies, and I've been giving it a lot of thought, and some things are happening where I hate to say it, but I think I was right. I think Zuffa Boxing and Dana White is going to be good for the sport of boxing. It's going to be good. You're going to be hearing negative stuff from the people that want to or may lose their claws in the sport, so to speak. But I think it's going to be good for the sport. Before we get started with that, I am going to be, in addition to catching you up on some news, I am going to be breaking down 4 fights that are scheduled for this weekend, 2 for tomorrow and 2 on Saturday. So look forward to that. And also, I wanted to touch base on a fight card I watched over the weekend. All right. First of all, I just want to start off by saying I'm not getting paid to promote the Zone. Okay, I'm not. I should, but I'm not. The truth of the matter is the Zone is really, I'm enjoying it. I wasn't going to talk about it, and I briefly mentioned it when the last time Alex Papali was on the show, and how I bit the bullet. I got the super duper supersonic membership, the $45 a month or whatever it is. And I got to tell you, And yes, I still pay for the ESPN's Plus and some other streaming services, so we can have Paramount and Peacock and whenever you can get, and of course Netflix, to get these fights. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But collectively, I really think the Zone is where it's at, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why I like it is the fight card that I watched this past weekend. Now, all right. So, if you're watching or listening from the United States, we have a way of doing shows here, and they're all very similar. I love the UK because the UK always has these, big drama show, all these big, entrances and stuff. But the fans and the fighters in the UK really make the sport because the fighters aren't afraid to fight each other, and the fans are absolutely great. They're the most knowledgeable fans that, at least when I have been around, and they don't bail on their fighters. They become a fan of a fighter and they stick with them. It doesn't matter if they're goes or whatever. But this past weekend, there was a card on the Zone from Turkey. All right, I don't know if you saw that, but the main event was Sukru Alate, a Turkish fighter. He won a WBC Middle Eastern title or whatever, 41 years old, and he beat Ali B. Sora. The fight was entertaining, and the undercard had some entertaining fights, and I couldn't remember any of the guys' names, so it's not about the fighters. It was about the card and how first of all, the fans loved it. All right. I don't know how often they put shows on in Turkey, but the one thing I noticed was that, a fighter gets, he wins the fight, and they got him standing in the ring, and they start coming out with all these like awards, right? Like first a trophy, then a gold medallion around their neck, then like this, commemorative dish, like those, like a big dish that you'd put on a trophy rack or something, and then a big like picture with a bow on it, and they're handing them. It was like, they're holding all this stuff, and then the best part of it all was they started giving it to the guy who lost too. It was like everybody gets a trophy, and it was pretty crazy for me to see that, because I think sports in general, everybody gets a trophy, kind of ruins it. You start, teaching kids that everybody gets a trophy. You don't have to be competitive. You don't have to, and I'm not a fan of that, but it was pretty interesting to see. And it was professional. It wasn't like amateurs. I mean, you see that with amateur fighters, but this was pro. The announcer was crazy. My point is, I love being able to watch fights from all over the world in the afternoon, right, live, and it's just something great. And if you don't, take advantage of that, you're missing out. But in any event, Zuffa Boxing. Here's the thing, all right. They're busting out of the gate. TKO and Zuffa Boxing. Now TKO Boxing, and Zuffa, they're basically the same. TKO is the parent company. So we got cards back to back to back. Their first one is being held in Las Vegas this weekend, January 23rd. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be it's Friday. I'm going to be breaking down a couple of the fights. One fight on that card, and there's another card tomorrow night too. Then in 2 weeks, February 1st, at the same location, the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, they're doing another one that will be February 1st, and then a third one on Valentine's Day, February 14th, all in the same location, and they'll all be televised on Paramount. Now, the thing is there's some pretty decent cards. We're going to be talking about those a little bit later, but it just seems, and remember what I said, boys and girls. I said that what we were witnessing on the undercard of Turki Al-Rashid's shows. I said, keep an eye on these young fighters because I think that they're going to become the pool of fighters that Zuffa Boxing builds. Part of his evil plan to take over boxing. But he's going to build up a pool of young fighters, and then as time goes on, the current champs and the big name guys will retire, and they'll all be. So I said, yeah, this whole thing will probably take 5 or 6 years to materialize, and it's going to be good. Well, guess what? I was wrong. It's going to be quicker. You know why? Because they're signing some big names. It was announced this past week that Jai Opetaia, in my opinion, the best cruiserweight in the world, signed a contract with Zuffa Boxing. And oh, by the way, they said, you know how Dana White's been saying we will not honor any of the other sanctioning body titles. We're not going to work with other promoters. We also said last week, that's BS because they're going to have to work with the other promoters because eventually the promoters who just want the do-re-mi, they're going to want to flock to wherever they can get paid. And if Turki Al-Rashid is involved and there's some money being thrown around, and make no mistake, TKO, TKO Boxing, the main company that owns WWE and the UFC, they have plenty of money, so it makes sense. So Jai Opetaia announced, because people were a little nervous, they're saying, oh, well, he wants to unify the titles. He's got the ring belt. He's got another belt, I believe, the IBF. And it was announced today. Guess what? When he fights under Dana White's banner, he'll be able to defend his titles. There you go. There'll be sanctioning fees on there. There'll be other promoters involved, so it's all about the money in boxing. But what will eventually happen is that they'll be fighting for the Zuffa belt. Yeah, I saw some pictures of it. It looks kind of cheesy, to be honest with you. Hey, before I continue with the Zuffa Boxing comment, Anthony Joshua is back in the gym. As you know, he was involved in that car crash after his beat down to Jake Paul, in which two of his friends were killed. And he basically didn't want anything to do with boxing anymore, blah, blah, blah. But he's back in the gym, and he's using it as, a mental repair. So I just wanted to pass that along. So here's the other part of Dana White and Zuffa Boxing, because you're saying, ooh, Jai Opetaia. I said that. I said, ooh, Jai Opetaia, right? But guess who is rumored to sign with him now? How about Usyk? Yeah, there's some inside information, and it's being touted, as you're going to hear it soon, that Oleksandr Usyk is going to sign on with Zuffa Boxing, which is amazing to me. All right, it's amazing because doesn't he have a collection of belts too? But now that no one has to lose their belt, you're going to see it, and it makes sense to me, especially for two fighters like Jai Opetaia and Usyk. Jai Opetaia's problem, I think, it's because he's too good. But then again, he's not. He's from the land down under, right? Or somewhere, Wales or not Wales. I'm pretty sure he's from down there. So we don't get to see him a lot. But you gotta, he fights on UK cards, but this guy is fantastic. He's everything. He's everything that the cruiserweight division can be. And the thing is if this guy unifies the titles, obviously Gilberto Ramirez is fighting David Benavidez, and he's got a belt, Gilberto, and McKillian, who just won his belt, he's got a belt. So I mean, we have some really good fights, considering Gilberto Ramirez against David Benavidez, the winner of that fight, Jai Opetaia, McKillian, Jai Opetaia, and it's all being done under Zuffa Boxing with Turkey Al-Rashid. I mean, look, let's face it, the king of boxing promotions for years was the king himself, Don King, and King Promotions, and who else was up there? Of course, Bob Arum and and Top Rank. But I mean, no disrespect, but Bob Arum and Don King are well into their 90s. Don King, it does not look like King Promotions, Don King Promotions is going to continue after Don hangs up the gloves. You never know, but it doesn't look likely from my information. As far as Bob Arum and Top Rank, well, he's going to pass that off to his daughter and son-in-law. And then look, you got Eddie Hearn, right? He took, he got it from his dad. He's a young guy, and I like Eddie Hearn. I think he's good for the sport. You got Oscar De La Hoya, who's a young guy and was in the driver's seat for the longest time, but I don't know what's happened to him. I'll get to that in a little bit later, but it's like he's holding his breath and stomping his feet. It sounds like other promoters don't want to work with him anymore. So who knows about that? And then you got Frank Warren, Queensberry Promotions. These are the promoters I'm naming that have been around. And now his son is kind of stepping forward to take some over. So you're starting to see a change, is my point. You got some new up-and-coming boxing promoters like Boxer, Boxxer. And then you got the meat and potatoes promoters that have been around forever that, in my opinion, are the backbone of the sport of boxing. And that's guys like my man Jimmy Birchfield from CES Boxing, Joe DeGuardia from Star Boxing, and even Bobby Hitz and Hitz Boxing. These guys, they're building up some stuff for the younger fighters. But the big guys, the guys with the money that we're used to putting on the big shows, and Turkey Al-Rashid's in the mix now, is a changing of the guard. I really think the more I think of it, the more I really break it down in my head, this is all being timed perfectly. And I was saying to myself this morning, I go, really, I mean, can we all say that it was just a coincidence that Dana White is hitting on all cylinders here? Or maybe we got to start giving this cat some credit. He did the same thing with UFC. He's a no-nonsense guy. He doesn't give a rat's ass whether anybody likes him or not. But he seems to be getting the job done. And if he signs and seals and delivers Oleksandr Usyk to be part of his promotional company, his fight league, so to speak, and he's already got Jai Opetaia, and they got a whole bunch of young fighters. I mean, what's preventing them from doing it? I think it's good. Look, my main man, Mike Silva, you hear me talk about all his books all the time. I'm going to have him on. I just finished his When in Doubt, Stop the Bout book, which was great. And he and I were talking on the phone several weeks back about this very subject. And, he was saying, look, if he's got I'm not going to give away what I know he wants to talk about on the show. So I won't. But some of the things that he was agreeing with me on with Dana White is he said, look, I mean, why are people standing in the way and opposing it? If it can help the sport, let's support it. If it doesn't help the sport, we don't lose anything because the sports will be in the same position it is right now. It's a win-win situation. And by the way, to further this talk of Usyk potentially signing on with TKO, it was rumored that, they're looking to get him on YouTube so he can get a record-breaking, break the record for views. But, the more you break it down and you start seeing like Zuffa Boxing, their deal with Paramount, right? Their deal with Paramount Plus. We all know that Netflix wants to be a player. Now YouTube wants to be a player. It all means that sets of eyes are watching our sport. Okay. And I believe that it's up to a good promoter or a collection of good promoters to take advantage of that market, those markets, those eyes. So you're going to start to see more commercials and more advertising geared to these, millions and millions of people that are watching it. And that's what grassroots promoting is all about. I'd mentioned guys like Jimmy Birchfield and CES Boxing and Joe DeGuardi and Bobby Hitz, those three promoters specifically. And listen, they're not the only three. There's plenty of them around. It's just that, I know them personally and am closer to their shows. And the thing is that that's the backbone. Those kinds of shows build up fighters, and the more, and that's how they are able to survive. They sell advertising locally, to wherever, the fight cards are happening. Joe is in, the New York scene. Bobby Hitz, excuse me, is in the Chicago scene. Jimmy Birchfield's in New England. He's got New England soda. So I mean, these guys have created over the years. This isn't overnight. Over the years, they've created, sponsors and advertisers and fans, that go to watch all their fights. And I'm that's a small, club show, local markets. But guess what? Zuffa Boxing all of a sudden is in a driver's seat to be global, to have the same stuff. The amount of if they can put on the fights, and you see, boys and girls, this is why I feel so strongly about Dana White and his Zuffa Boxing is going to succeed, because they're going to put on these fights. Okay, look, let's talk again real quick about Oleksandr Usyk, right? Here it is. Up until we heard that he was going to sign with Zuffa, what did we hear? We heard pretty much, and from himself too, by the way, pretty much that he was fighting Deontay Wilder, right? Not so fast, Baba Louie, because it was announced today that it looks like Deontay Wilder and Derek Chisora are going to be fighting in April in the UK, and it's almost signed, sealed, and delivered. So what does that do? What does that do? Whoa, could that potentially be setting up the fight that we want to see? Usyk against AJ KBL? I mean, KBL deserves the fight against Usyk. Usyk traditionally has fought the best out there. Deontay Wilder's a bum. He's finished. If he could beat a guy like Chisora and then maybe get another win, then he earns a shot. Then I have no problem with him fighting the top guy. But, coming off of these losses and, getting that one win against a, Petunia opponent, I mean, come on, but if Deontay earns a shot, gets a win over Chisora, okay, now you have to, put him in the mix, but, not beforehand. And then you fast forward, you get Zuffa Boxing, you get Usyk signing with him. Then they cut the deal with KBL. They could literally have the live event in Germany. You saw the fan base that AJ KBL had, and how many turned out in Germany. They could sell out a stadium in Germany, so there's your live gate. And then you broadcast it on Netflix or YouTube or Paramount, where you get 40 million people watching it. And it's in Europe, so it's on early. So, old guys like me can stay up and watch it. I don't have to watch a replay. Look, it's happening, all right? It's happening before our eyes, because one of the things that you can't keep track of, at least because of the speed at which it changes, is technology. My grandparents, when you look back at that era, people say, oh, though, that age group, they saw so much in the world, so much change. When my grandparents came from Italy, they were still, even though there were cars and trucks, they were still delivering ice by horse and buggy in the city, in New York City, because a lot of people had ice boxes. They didn't have refrigerators, and it would put a big chunk of ice in there, and that would keep stuff fresh. So my grandparents got to see that, to a man on the moon, computers, email, color TV. I mean, all these changes from the time they were kids. So you say, wow, that generation really saw a lot. They saw the wars, World War II and all the change that took place. Think of this generation now. Think of my generation. My kids are mid to late 30s. They never were alive when there were cords on TV on telephones. Every phone they ever had was cordless. I remember getting the first cordless phone. It was like $280. And you had to program it a certain way, otherwise you may be talking to the neighbor, who might have one. They never had to get up to change the channel. They never had to worry about only being able to watch a few channels on TV. Forget about music. When you had records and then it went to 8-track and cassettes, when CDs came out, ooh, CDs, you'll never scratch a CD. You'll always be able to save your music on CDs. Fast forward to today, who the hell buys? You can't even get a CD player. It's all digital. It's on your phone. I mean, technology changes so rapidly, and so is the sport of boxing. And, I think that some of these changes are happening so quickly that a lot of people don't realize. And I'm telling you right now that the reason why, when we had Boxing Bob Newman on here a couple weeks ago, and, he was giving us a report about the conventions of the sanctioning bodies, and they were all trying to, join forces to fight the evil Zuffa Boxing. But guess what? I don't care how they spin it. And Carl made a good point, just like Suleiman did, about a young fighter dashing his dreams by not letting him fight for a world title. Well, it goes back to the show I told you guys about in Turkey. Does everyone deserve the title? Does everyone deserve the trophy? Does everyone deserve the plaque? I mean, no, they don't. In boxing, you should have one champ, for each division. Okay, so we can't only have 8 divisions anymore. So you have 16, 17 divisions. Fine. But at least only give us one champ. I mean, the truth of the matter is in the 40s and the 50s, and even into the 70s. And then you could say for the heavyweight division, but, you could go up to anybody on the street and ask them, who the world champion is, and they would know a world champion, and when Mike Tyson hit the scene, everybody knew who Mike Tyson was. I'm talking anybody, some little old lady pushing, a shopping cart, you could ask her and she would know. Today, you could ask a guy at a gym. You could be sitting next to a guy at a ball game, at a baseball, a football, basketball game, whatever, and ask them, and they won't know. Because there's too many. I mean, I can't even name all the champions. Come on. So I think that if we can get it back to competitive fights earlier on, so you're weeding out the wannabes and the never will be's, and you're advancing the better fighter each time. Okay, so by the time the two guys get to fight for a title, or two girls, they're already established and quality fighters. So the champion naturally will rise to the top and be the best. It won't just be a belt holder. There'll be a legitimate champ. Today you hear fighters say it's easy to win a title, it's hard to keep it. Well, if you have to climb the ladder, it's going to be hard to get it, and it will be easier to keep, because yes, you're going to be fighting better people, but you have to assume that you truly are the best in that division if you've already climbed the ladder. I think it's got the potential to be good for the sport, be good for the fans, and get boxing back into the mainstream of sports. Look, it's the perfect time. Football, look, I'm a boxing, football, and baseball fan. I'm not super, sorry, coach, I'm not super into hockey. I like watching hockey live, but I don't really follow it that much. And basketball as well. I mean, I like watching basketball live, but I very rarely watch either on TV, let alone golf or something like that. So speaking on football and baseball perspective, football's getting hard to watch, man. I can't stand the antics. They get a first down and they're cheering. I got a first down. Well, that's what you're supposed to do, man. You score a touchdown, they all do a dance. They all, it's like this big celebration. You're supposed to. What you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get touchdowns and score and win. I mean that's the rules. So it's becoming individualized instead of team oriented. Baseball's the same way. They hit the home run, flip the bat, watch it. I love when they stand there and then the guy catches it. I guess it wasn't a home run, but so boxing's in a point right now where I think we could pick up the slack. I think we could get some fans that are losing interest in other sports because they've gone over the top. Even college. I mean, look, I'm a big college football fan. With this transfer portal, I mean, he's got, come on. I mean, it was great to see Miami and Indiana, two teams that haven't been to the championship game. I don't think Indiana ever was, but Miami was during its time. But I mean, it was good to see that, but anyway, boxing's in a good spot if this works. And I'm going to support it. Because I think that in the long run, it's going to be good. I'll tell you what's not good. Somebody's saying, yeah, this guy knows the difference between a belt holder and a champion. Yeah, I know. He's saying not too many boxing podcasters have grasped it. Hey, listen, I appreciate. I'm glad I caught that. I know we're getting a lot of comments passing by. This is King KO the Great. That's his handle. Thank you for the accolades. But listen, dude. I mean, you just hit on something that really bothers me. Yes, we started 23 years ago. Can you believe that, boys and girls? We're in our 23rd year. We started 23 years ago as a podcast. We were one of the first podcasts, any podcast, let alone boxing, right? But we strove to get, our big goal was to get on TV. Oh, actually, our big goal was to get on the radio, terrestrial radio. And then we ultimately found ourselves on TV and stuff. And we had a really, really good run. In hindsight, we should have continued to build the podcast, because now, I take not even a full year off, and it's like, we're climbing the ladder again. We're like these fighters. We're telling you that I'm talking about, And the truth of the matter is, because nobody watches, all the networks that we were on 3 different TV networks. They're all none of them do it anymore because of streaming. Everybody does the streaming. So and the radio stations, what, does anyone listen to radio anymore? I mean, I listen to Sirius, and they already got a show. My man Randy Gordon's on the show on Sirius, but in any event, some other news. I was talking about Oscar De La Hoya and having some problems. Did you catch that Virgil Ortiz is suing Oscar De La Hoya? Apparently there's a lot of animosity because of the fight that they can't make against Boots Ennis. And some of the highlights of this lawsuit is contract termination, right? Ortiz's team claims that they have the right to just end the contract because Golden Boy's DAZN streaming agreement expired, and so that must have been a part of the contract. Another thing is failed fight negotiations. They're talking about the Boots Ennis. That's right. My main man John is saying, or as I would say, doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook. That's right. You want to see some of the old shows, some of the broadcasts that we did, go up onto LDL TV, man, to my man John. I'm waiting for him. I'm waiting for us to go back on there, but I might have some big news for everybody pretty soon. So just hold that thought. But anyway, failed fight negotiations. They're using this to try and terminate the contract with Ortiz and Golden Boy because the Boots Ennis fight did not happen. Violation of contractual mandates, lack of transparency, blah blah blah. So I don't know if you caught this, but they had this fight all signed, sealed, and delivered, except Oscar De La Hoya didn't agree to the terms. Now, from what I understand, it was a 60-40 split in Boots's favor. 60-40 split in Boots's favor, with the winner getting, if I recall correctly, I think it was a 5% boost, right? An additional 5% on top, right? Well, Oscar De La Hoya he felt so. In my opinion, this was Eddie Hearn throwing back to Oscar De La Hoya what Oscar was saying that he wanted, that he felt that Ortiz was the A side, so to speak. So he deserved the 60-40, but it was never on paper. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom put it on paper with Boots Ennis as the 60-40 guy. So logic would say, well, Oscar, come back. And if somebody's not going to, come to the table and make this fight happen like all great promoters have in the past, how about settling for a 50-50 split and then giving the winner a bonus of 5 or 10%? That would sway it to up to 60%, right? That's fair to me, where there's no A side. Look, I believe personally that Virgil Ortiz, if there had to be an A side, I believe that Virgil Ortiz should be the A side because of what he's already accomplished. Boots Ennis appears to be an exceptional talent, but who's he fought? And his best fight was his last fight. The jury's not out on him yet. To me, he's like Ituma. Everybody's putting him in a Hall of Fame already, and he really hasn't beaten anybody. I mean, he can't use the first round knockout in his last fight as, that's how good he is. No. He wanted to fight Usyk. He doesn't deserve a shot at Usyk. Come on. So this whole thing, see, this is the problem with boxing. You get fights that the fighters want, and then the promoters and all the other people with their claws into the sport don't make it happen. That's why I think Dana White's Zuffa Boxing is going to succeed. Because if that kind of bullshit was taken out of their hands, in other words, one of the things that the sanctioning bodies are trying to say, the Zuffa Boxing wants to change the Ali Act. They want to modify the Ali Act so that they can have, management and promotional, things that they can do with the fighters, contracts with the fighters. That's not considered a violation. Like Carl King was talking about it, like Carl saying, hey, they made that Ali Act, because they were basically trying to prevent Carl and Don from doing exactly kind of what Dana White wants to do. The only difference is Dana White is putting it as a league, but he's adding other things, benefits, retirement, blah, 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 from what I understand. So, I just think that, fans, even fans like myself, I'm a fan first, you get sick of it when you see a fight. That's the fight I want to see. Virgil Ortiz against Boots Ennis. That's the fight I want to see, right? And they don't make it happen. It's crazy. Coach is saying he thinks Ortiz is going to be a free agent by April. My man Alex says disappointing that the guy holding up the Boots versus Ortiz fight is De La Hoya. Oscar fought anyone and everyone for 5, 6 year wait. Yeah, you can't always assume, Alex, that it's him. Again, let's face it. We all know how it works, right? If a promoter gets the fighter the maximum dollars, then his cut is bigger, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they don't call it prize fighting for no reason, right? I mean, the guy's got to make the money. So, and a good manager and a good promoter will always try to get the most money they can for the fighter, and the fighter deserves that. He deserves the people around him to try and get him the most money. But you can't walk away from it. You got to keep the negotiations open. Oscar came and publicly said, "This deal's off because I'm not taking it." Well, no. I mean, look, let's face it. How many times has a promoter said the deal is off and then the next day the contract is signed? It just wasn't handled right. And because, social media and everything is instantaneous today, you got people going on social media making, if you want to really get all effed up with, what's coming and going and what's true and what's not true, just go on social media for a while. You'll think all these things are happening, and 90% of the time it's not. I wait until things are signed, sealed, and delivered. The only reason why I'm talking about the potential Usyk signing is because I have a feeling it's going to get done, and it makes sense now that the Wilder Chisora fight, which is also being talked about, and it's there's validation behind it. So I think it's going to happen, and I think that Zuffa Boxing is moving quickly. They're throwing some money. He's got the not only the backing of TKO Promotions, or whatever the main company is called. I think it is TKO Promotions, and Turkey Al Rashid, and the country of Saudi Arabia. Follow the money, man, and you'll follow boxing. I thought it would be difficult. I said it. I thought it would be difficult to pry some of the current champions away from a belt. But look, we're getting another dimension added. Zuffa Boxing saying, "I will not work with other promoters. We will not recognize sanctioning bodies. But if you sign with me, we will." Now think about this for a second. And it's going to circle back to Terrence Crawford, right? Terrence Crawford refused to pay the WBC sanctioning fee. Well, and I went on air. Look, when I promoted boxing and we had title fights, I always paid the fee. Somebody was on social media saying, "No, Bill, you're wrong. The fighter always pays it." No, not always. It depends what kind of a deal you have. So my thinking is, Dana White saying, "Well, he's not paying any sanctioning fees." The fighter wants to pay a sanctioning fee and have a belt on it, fine. Now, whether they announce the belt, whether they do it that way or not, I don't know. Are they going to put that on the broadcast? Who knows? We'll see. But I'm loving it. Speaking of loving, did you see that they signed the fight? This is another fight that everybody wanted to see. A couple of top-notch Japanese fighter, undisputed super bantamweight champion Naoya, the monster Inoue, is putting his belts on the line, and he's taking on 3-division champ Junito Nakatani in Tokyo on May 2nd. And his brother will be on that card as well, fighting Kazuto Ioka. So, those are some May 2nd. Mark that one down. Now, here's another one. I'm back. Yeah, this is like, how many degrees of separation do you get to promote Dana White and Zuffa Boxing, Billy C? Because they're not giving you no money, Here's the thing. Canelo just announced that he's going to return to the sport of boxing in September. And he's going to be on a card in Saudi Arabia called Mexico Against the World. So we don't know who the opponent is, but apparently they do. They're just waiting to announce it. And I don't know if you remember, but Canelo has been out of the sport for a little bit since he lost to Crawford. He had some surgery. But here's my prediction, boys and girls. Canelo signs with Zuffa Boxing. Canelo signs with Zuffa Boxing. Okay. And the title that's going to be on the line, they're promising it a title fight. Well, he doesn't have any titles. Now, unless the WBC is going to automatically give him the interim belt or make some kind of a mandatory with somebody who has a belt. So Canelo fights for a belt because they said that the fight will be taking place in September and it will be for a world title. I think it's going to be for the Zuffa world title. You watch. And then now you get Canelo, you get Usyk, you got Jai Opetaia, three big names, quality fighters. I know a lot of people won't say that about Canelo, but facts are facts. Three quality fighters, three name fighters, and three fighters that can sell. Basically, Jai Opetaia can sell if you watch him. You'll want to see him again. Usyk is just, he's just a master. So people want to watch him, and Canelo draws. Canelo sells. You watch. King KO says, "I hope Paramount and DAZN can work together. If not, we'll be back with the network politics we had between Showtime, HBO, and DAZN." Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about them working together. But I will tell you this: I don't think DAZN has a problem with being part of a multi streaming service event, because the fight that I saw now granted, it wasn't Canelo and it wasn't Usyk, it wasn't a top notch card, but that fight I told you, that very entertaining card from Turkey. Oh, and by the way, the other part I left out is all the music and the dancing. It was like, it was definitely, I enjoyed it. And if you have the zone, go back and watch it. It was the Soro whoever fight from last weekend. But I think that it makes sense, to the network politics. The zone wouldn't, but Paramount, I don't know. That's a good point that he makes here. That they'll be battling, but when networks battle for fights, that's not necessarily bad for fights. These guys are looking for subscribers, right? Paramount, people subscribe. If you want to watch the fight and you don't have to pay for it, you subscribe. So I mean, DAZN, that's a little different. I mean, I'm signing up for all boxing, right? And with it, I get some so-called pay-per-views. Paramount, Netflix, YouTube, they're not going to be pay-per-view. I don't think. I think that they're just going to be putting yourself in front of. I mean, the only company that has the balls to charge pay-per-view on a streaming service like that is the worst promotional company. You didn't hear me mention their names because they're the worst and they have fraud fighters. And that, boys and girls, is the PBC. But in any event, yeah, Canelo, that's my prediction. He signs with Zuffa. Speaking of signing and some fights, Stephen Big Bang Butler is taking on Ramadan Hassini on March 5th in Montreal. My man, my friend, John Iceman Scully, who's one of the trainers for Big Bang Butler, said, I believe, and this is in the super middleweight division, Big Bang Butler. It's actually Bang Bang. I'm saying Big Bang, but it's Bang Bang. 37 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, 31 of his coming by knockout. He's moved up to the super middleweight, and he feels very comfortable at it. And John Scully said, I believe moving up to super middleweight was the best decision Steve has made in his entire career. Over his last 3 fights, I've seen him reborn in the gym. He's stronger, more powerful, and has better stamina. He has a champion's mindset, and now he has all the tools to become one. I'm pulling for Stephen Butler and John Scully, two great guys, to be honest with you. Coach is saying, like the old days, CBS versus NBC versus ABC for weekend evening boxing. You know what? This is what I'm telling you. What I love about the again DAZN is because even if it's like a Vegas fight, right? And it's on usually a Vegas fight. By the time it's on here in New York, it's midnight. So for someone like me, who's usually in his feety pajamas by way before then, what I like is, I go to bed whenever the hell I want. I wake up, I don't have to turn anything on except DAZN and watch the replay as if it's live. I mean, it's great. I love it. So, it's Dax is in there saying Usyk's in talks, but won't sign with Zuffa unless it's a single big payday. He has announced his intentions on retirement to be with his family. Listen, Dax, before he retires, he will sign with Zuffa. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It makes sense. He's going to get a lot of money, you're gonna see it. And I don't agree that Usyk against Opetaia. That I don't know unless what Dax is saying that Usyk is going to go back down to cruiserweight. I think we're going to see Usyk fight KBL as a Zuffa Boxing. It's going to be on a streaming service, and he's going to get a humongous payday. And then win, lose, or draw. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he retires. That's what I think is going to happen. Right, and that's what Coach is saying, and Dax is agreeing that Usyk gets a Zuffa big payday, a goodbye fight. Yeah, but he's going to fight KBL. You watch. Anyway, speaking of streaming, they got Top Rank is going to be streaming the junior middleweight title unification fight between Alexander Zayas and Abbas Baru, which is taking place Saturday, January 31st. And that's going to be on their Fast channel, Top Rank Classics Fast channel, which I saw online. I watched a fight on it. I think I watched one of the fights from Japan on there. Again, the broadcast starts at 5:30, but here's the ding. Here's the ding. Here the ding. The January 31st is a busy day, busy for boxing, man. Not only, and this is a good fight, Baru going against Zayas. I mean, it's a really good fight. But we also have on that day a couple of title fights in the junior middleweight division. Bakram Maslov against Josh Kelly. That's a good fight. Nur Turhan against Tyler Jensen. Gentzen. That's an IBF title fight. That's on the 31st. Then don't forget Teofimo Lopez and Shakira Stevenson. Huge fight on the 31st. And the undercard there is Carlos Adames against Austin Williams. That's another title fight. And Bruce Carrington against Carlos Castro. Another title fight. See what I mean? We got lots of titles. That's on the 31st. So you're going to have a lot of stuff to pick on that one. Then, of course, on the channel that has all the boxing, DAZN, you got, Owen Cooper, 11-1, 4 knockouts in the welterweight division, and Konstantin Urso, 14-0 with 6 knockouts. They're both fighting for the vacant British welterweight title on February 28th. So a lot of stuff is coming up. Coming up. We got my man John from LDL is telling me that Tio Lopez is training in Pompano. That's cool. Speaking of Stacey, I got to get him on. I told him I would get him on. He was inducted into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame when I was in last year. And by the way, John, it's like I'm talking to John on the phone here. I got to get with you. I want to. I'm going to probably be down there in June, so we'll talk about that. Anyway, remember Captain Marco Huck? Was a cruiserweight champion for forever, and then he got into the heavyweight division. Well, guess what? He's making a comeback. Yeah, he wants to join in the reindeer games too. Marco Captain Huck, 43 wins, 5 losses, and a draw, is coming back. His last fight was in 2024 when he beat a heavyweight, but had to end because he got hurt. Before that, he fought 4 years earlier in 2020 when he beat Dennis Lewandowski. I mean, he got out of the sport in the cruiserweight division when he lost back to back to Marius Briedis and the current main world heavyweight champion Oleksandr Usyk. But really, he reigned as the top cruiserweight in between 2009 and 2014. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But Dax is saying Opetaia wants one more fight at cruiserweight, then he wants to be a heavyweight. I don't know if he's big enough. Look, all these guys say the same thing. They all want to move up to heavyweight. Well, there's a reason, because of the money, right? But these guys aren't big enough for today's heavyweights. I mean, okay, Deontay Wilder, he's not a 240 pounder, but he is tall and he does have freakish power. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's a one-trick phony. I said it right, phony. But Jai Opetaia is a very talented fighter, extreme boxing skill. Theoretically, you could say, okay, he could outbox, a big fighter, a bigger fighter in the heavyweight division. Usyk's not going to be there forever. Usyk's going to have his fight like we're talking about. Then he's going to walk away. He was a he was a freak. He's not the norm. He's a freak. He's a quality fighter. You're not going to see another Usyk for, if ever, but definitely not for a long time. So the rest of those heavyweights are all big guys. I still think you're going to see Daniel Dubois again. I still think so. But all right, I'm going to break down a couple of fights here to close out this show because next week we're going to probably be going a little longer with all the big fights we got on slate. So be ready for that. On Friday, we got a fight, which is an interesting fight, actually. Will be on DAZN, and it features Jose Tito Sanchez going up against Jesus Eduardo Ramirez Rubio as the main event. When you look at Jesus Eduardo Ramirez Rubio, or just Jesus Ramirez Rubio, he's got an impressive record: 23 wins, 4 losses, and 3 of his fights was a draw. 17 of his 23 wins by way of knockout. In his 4 losses, all by knockout. He's in the featherweight division. The computer ranks him at number 214. He's not ranked anywhere else. He's got 30 pro bouts, which is 16 more than his opponent. He's got 68 more rounds at 136. His knockout ratio is about 74%. He's an orthodox fighter, 30 years old, 5'7". He's a little tall. He's from Mexico. Here's the thing. His last fight was a 5th-round knockout over Carlos Pacheco back in November of 2025 last year. Prior to that, he had his back-to-back KO losses. He was also blown out in the first round against one of my favorite fighters, Nick Ball, back in 2022. He's going to go into this fight with a 2-inch height advantage at 5'7". Now he steps in the ring with Jose Tito Sanchez. Tito Sanchez is 14-0 with 8 of his wins coming by knockout. He hasn't fought in a long time. His last fight was October 24th, and it was an 8th-round knockout over Edwin Palomar. He's not rated anywhere. due to his inactivity. No computer rankings, no sanctioning bodies, not on our ranking, not Ring, not ESPN, not IBO's Top 100. So he's not ranked anywhere. He's got 68 rounds less. At 5'5", he's going into this fight 2 inches shorter. He's got no big wins. I can't tell you any fight on his card that I say, hey, he beat so-and-so. He's, by the record, there's a couple of guys that looked okay, but I never heard of him. His opponent's combined record, even that looks good. 133 wins, 72 losses, and 13 draws. Who's going to win this fight? Well, I look at this card. I see a guy that's been out of the ring for 2 years. Which not much data I can get on him fighting a guy that beats the guys that he's supposed to beat. He's got an impressive record, but he's got a suspect chin. And the biggest thing I notice about Jesus Ramirez Rubio is that if you jump all over him quick, he folds quickly. If you pussyfoot around, he's gonna hang around for a while. Nick Ball blew him out. That's what Jose Tito Sanchez has to do to win the fight. I think that Jesus Ramirez Rubio is not just an opponent they happen to have picked for Jose Tito Sanchez. I think they picked him for a reason. I'm going with Jose Tito Sanchez in that one. The next fight is one I am so looking forward to. It too is on Friday night on Paramount. This is one of Zuffa Boxing's cards, and this features Callum Walsh going up against Carlos Ocampo. Callum Walsh, young fighter, really promising looking guy. He's 15-0 with 11 knockouts. He's ranked number 14 by the computer already with 15 pro fights. The IBF has him at number 4. The WBC has him at number 5. The WBO has him at number 9. He's not rated by the WBA, by the Ring, or by Billy C Boxing rankings. The IBO's Top 100 computer has him at number 11. He's got 15 pro fights, 26 less than his opponent, 61 rounds, 138 rounds less than his opponent. He's 5'9" with a 71.5-inch reach, both an inch and a half less than his opponent. He's 24 years old, which is 6 years younger than his opponent, and he's a southpaw. The two best wins of his career really was a 10-round decision over Ishmael of Villarreal in November of 2023, and his last fight, which was a pretty entertaining fight against Fernando Vargas Jr. It was a 10-round decision. Now, Callum Walsh, promising young fighter in the super welterweight, junior middleweight division, he goes up against Carlos Ocampo. And Ocampo, he's been around, and he's a pretty good fighter. He comes to fight. He's 38 wins, 3 losses. 2 of his losses coming by knockout. The computer ranks him at number 37. He's not rated by any of the 4 sanctioning bodies, by ours, by the Ring or ESPN, and the Top 100 has him at number 30. He's got 41 professional fights, 26 more than his opponent, Mr. Walsh, and like I said, 199 rounds as a pro, which is 138 more than his opponent. He's 30 years old, 6 years older, and like I said, at 5'10.5" and 73-inch reach, he's got an inch and a half advantage with both of those. He's challenged for interim. I can't believe I'm saying this. He's challenged for interim world titles twice, and he lost both times. He lost a 12-round decision to Sebastian Fundora in April of 2022 for the WBC interim super welterweight title. And he also lost to Tim Zhu via a first-round knockout on June 18th in 2023 for the WBO's interim super middleweight title. Who's going to win this fight? Well, I do believe that Carlos Ocampo is going to be a tough fight for Callum Walsh. Callum Walsh does have 11 knockouts. He's holding a 73% KO ratio, but he sets up his fighters pretty well. He's got uh, better than, in my opinion, better than average boxing skill with 15 pro fights. I think it's going to be a tough fight for Callum Walsh, but I think Callum Walsh is going to win this fight. He may not stop Ocampo, but he's going to win. Either way, I'm picking him to win the fight. Um, the other two fights I'm picking are on the Saturday the Zone card. The first one I want to talk about is also in the junior middleweight division, and that's Israel Majeromov going up against Luis Salazar. Majeromov is 10 wins, 2 losses, 7 of his wins coming by knockout. His 2 losses came at the hands of Virgil Ortiz in February of 25 and against the man himself, Terence Crawford, in August of 24, both going the distance. He's 30 years old, 2 years younger than his opponent. He's only had 13 pro fights, ranked number 5 in the world by the computer. Billy C Boxing Rankings has him at number 3, but we have him as a welterweight. If you recall, we only recognize 9 weight classes, the original 8 plus the cruiserweight division. So it gets a little hairy when you're getting into these junior and super divisions because I combine them. The WBA has him at number 6. The WBC has him at number 6. The WBO has him at number 8. And he's not rated in the IBF. The Ring ratings has him at number 3. The ESPN ratings has him at number 5. And the top 100 IBO's computer rankings has him at number 4. The dude is legit. I mean, don't let his 12 fights fool you. He's a relentless fighter. I think that one of his problems with his 2 losses was that he didn't make the right adjustments. You know, he just was chasing these guys around the ring. I mean, Virgil Ortiz accommodated fine. Terence Crawford, you know, hey, listen, there's people that thought that he got the better of Terence Crawford. His style is a little tough, but you know, these 2 losses, he just didn't throw enough punches, but he was hard to hit. Now he steps in the ring with a guy. I don't know how to say it, but this is a dub. This is giving Israel Majeromov a win. Luis David Salazar has got a real impressive record. 20 wins, 1 loss, 7 of his wins coming by knockout. Was knocked out in his loss. The computer has him ranked at 218. He's not ranked anywhere else, even in the computer IBO's top 100. He's got a good record. He's 32 years old, 35% knockout ratio. There's nobody on his resume that you know. There's nobody on his resume that I know. There's just no named opponents. This is a win for Majeromov. I would love to see what the odds are. It's probably, you got to probably lay $10,000 to win 100. The fight of the weekend, well, the Callum Walsh fight. Callum Walsh. I was thinking of the other Callum, but Callum Walsh fight should be good. But this is going to be the fight of the weekend. Raymond Muratalla going up against Andy Cruz, and it's an interesting fight. First of all, Harvey Dock. It was just announced before we went on air that Harvey Dock, my main man, Harvey Dock, got the referee assignment for this. So congratulations to Harvey, one of the best referees in the sport, in my opinion. Raymond Muratalla, he's 23-0 with 17 of his wins coming by knockout. The computer ranks him at number 3 in the world at lightweight. He's the IBF world lightweight champion. The Ring has him at number 3. ESPN has him at number 6. Billy C Boxing has him at number 6. And the IBO's computer top 100 has him at numero uno, man, number 1. His last 3 fights, he's 5'8", 29 years old. He's got 23 total fights, which happens to be 17 more than his opponent, but put an asterisk next to that. and 113 rounds, 68 more than his opponent. At 5'8", he's an inch shorter, and he's an orthodox fighter. His last 3 fights were all wins against, in my opinion, very good opposition. In July of 2024, he won a 10-round decision over Tevin Farmer. In November of 24, he stopped Jesus Perez in the second round at Turning Stone. I was actually ringside for that fight. And in his last fight in May of 25, he won a 12-round decision over Zawier Abduliev. This guy is the real deal. I mean, he can fight. Now, he steps in the ring with Andy Cruz. All right. Now, when I say this record, my man Augie from Riverhead is he's gonna be like, he's not gonna. Andy Cruz. Now just sit down, Augie. Andy Cruz is 6-0, 6 wins, no losses. 3 of his wins coming by knockout. He's a Cuban fighter. But listen, boys and girls, and you too, Augie, his amateur record, 135 wins, 9 losses, 10 of his wins coming by knockout. He's one of these Cuban fighters that didn't really have a chance to fight pro because of the Cuban boxing scene. All 6 of his professional fights were against good opposition, and his last 2 wins were against very good opposition. In January of 25, he won a 10-round decision over Omar Gamaz. And in June of 25, he did a 5th-round stoppage over Hironi Mishiro. 2 very good fighters. The computer has him at number 14. The IBF has him at number 1. He's not rated by our rankings, by the WBC, WBO, or the WBA. However, the Ring has him at number 5. ESPN has him at number 5. And the IBO's Top 100 has him at number 9. Andy Cruz is a good fighter. I just think Muratalla is better. But I love this fight. I'm picking Muratalla. I just think that, I think that Muratalla has got some pop. And from what I see with some of these young Cuban fighters, excuse me, that have super extended amateur careers and limited pro careers, they don't like bang bang opposition, fighters that are roughing them up, fighters that are going to the body specifically. And Muratalla can do that. And I think that if Muratalla comes into this fight and breaks down Andy Cruz, meaning work the body and try to neutralize Cruz's jab, because he's got a beautiful jab, Muratalla is going to win this fight probably by stoppage. So we'll see. So I'm picking Muratalla on that one. So some crazy stuff going on in the sport of boxing when it comes to fights. A lot of times we look at some of these fights on paper. Sometimes they look real good. Sometimes they look kind of funky, and then we get a good fight. But in closing, I just want to say that I'm siding with Dana. I'm siding with Dana White. I just have a feeling that we're going to get some super surprises from big name fighters that aren't United States fighters. See, that's going to be the other thing. And don't be surprised if a guy like, Tyson Fury, even though he's got contracts with Queensberry and stuff, don't be surprised if something happens where he's fighting on those cards too. Look, Dana White's long-term game plan is to, get the other sanctioning bodies out of the mix. The promoters he could care less about. It's the fighters. So unless what's going to probably happen is promoters are going to permit their fighters, part of their contracts, to be part of Zuffa Boxing's league. It's going to be interesting to see how Zuffa Boxing handles it. If Dana White says, yeah, no, that's not going to happen, then you're going to revert back to the pool of young fighters that I believe that they're building up right now as we speak. with Turkey Al-Rashid. So, you sprinkle in a couple of big names, you throw them some cash out, goodbye money fights. And next thing you know, you're getting people watching and you're developing young fighters. So now people know who these fighters are and they become value. And it works. It's business 101, boys and girls. Well, listen, I appreciate you tuning in. And next week, like I said, we expect maybe the show to go a little longer because of all the big fights we're going to break down. I'm going to break them all down next week, all the big fights. And hopefully we'll have some updates with some of the news that's speculation right now, close to being signed, like the Wilder, Derek Chisora, and if Zuffa Boxing lands Usyk and all these things. Plus, we'll know how Zuffa Boxing's first card went this year with Smith on that. So all these things we're going to know. We're going to have all these answers for next week's show. So make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I leave you with this. Ciao.